Los padres unidos jamás serán vencidos. Los padres unidos jamás serán vencidos. Don't just close them. Fix our schools. Don't just close them.
Black and brown communities are under attack in the city. Our schools are set up to fail. We are warehousing students. We don't have money to be able to provide the quality education. We're spending hours and hours of precious instruction time doing test prep.
We say fight back! We say fight back!
This school system has suffered for the past 12 years under a regime who only saw their way of reform, and it wasn't helping the children in neighborhoods that we serve.
We are here to deliver a message to Mayor Bloomberg and the City Council from over 20,000 people that all signed our No Cuts to Our Schools petition.
For most of the past decade, parent and student organizing groups opposed the Bloomberg administration's education policies, particularly school closings, funding cuts, and the eclipse of parent and community participation. The groups argued that New York City was no education miracle because the mayor's policies had failed to effectively educate too many of the city's students.
Bloomberg claimed to be the education mayor. The whole country was looking at Bloomberg and his policies. When the city says no to the mayor, the country has to listen.
There was going to be an opportunity for change. You know, we'd had the same mayor for 12 years. We've been dealing with roughly the same people for 12 years, and now suddenly there was this opening that there was going to be somebody new. Over the last 12 years, there's been a real explosion in the number of groups out there doing education advocacy. A huge explosion, and we were all talking at the same time, often about the same thing, but in slightly different ways. And it seemed like in order to really be effective with the next mayor, that we needed to get our act together.
This is a great opportunity to elevate our voices and to make sure that our voices are heard. It was a good opportunity to make sure that we put our issues at the forefront. It was a great opportunity to make sure that we change the conversation around education.
As Mayor Bloomberg's final term was ending, two grassroots coalitions came together to elect a new mayor with a progressive education agenda. More than 50 community organizations, advocacy, and school reform groups founded A+ NYC to mobilize thousands of New Yorkers to envision a great public school system. The Annenberg Institute for School Reform coordinated A+ NYC. Some 35 community groups, labor unions, and advocacy organizations created New Yorkers for Great Public Schools to organize rallies, forums, and a citywide media campaign to convince the mayoral candidates that the Bloomberg education policies had failed. The Alliance for Quality Education coordinated New Yorkers for Great Public Schools. This film is their story. As the mayoral campaign began, four candidates emerged as key contenders: City Comptroller John Liu, former Comptroller Bill Thompson, Public Advocate Bill de Blasio, and City Council Speaker Christine Quinn. Quinn was the early frontrunner.
All of us in city government, all of us who are running for office, more information about what is happening out there in neighborhoods.
No one wants to hear. Those at City Hall, the mayor, and those that tweet don't really care what you have to say.
And at the end of the day, when there's more collaboration, our school system will be that much better off for it.
This is exactly the way we need to draw the public's attention to the future of our city, which means the future of our school.
To draw the public's attention to the future of our schools, A+ NYC organized 75 workshops involving more than 1,000 parents, students, and teachers. The workshop's facilitators asked 4 questions. What's your vision of a great school system? A great school? A great classroom? What should the next mayor do to improve the city's schools?
We gave people sticky notes. Everything that comes to your mind, anything that you think that would make a great education for that child, write an idea down per Post-it. Write it down and then put it up on the wall.
We want to make sure that the students today are leaders of tomorrow. And we want to make sure that they are leaders today as well. We want to make sure that they will remain leaders.
What would you want, to have, that you have in your school for other kids to have?
We have money, right? Intentional support for special ed, ESL, like so money targeted at special populations. We have arts, music. You have youth, student governing body, decision making.
I remember running a lot of workshops in Brooklyn, in Queens, and in the Bronx, and being able to see what some of the thoughts that people were thinking about in terms of how to change school. What should a school feel like? What should a school look like? What should the classroom look like? What should your interaction with adults be?
What could be better in their schools? Comparing the school they're in now to the school they attended last year, talking to their friends about their experience in schools, talking to their teachers about their teachers' frustrations in school.
We need, collaboration between city, teachers, parents, and students.
As they delved into the questions and really started to open up, it became an amazing experience. What is an ideal education? What do I want to see in classrooms?
Más recursos para nuestros niños, que tengan más artes, más actividad física, nada más la clase, nada más el estrés de los exámenes, escribir, tareas, también necesitan más su mente, abrirla.
Cuando la clase está sobrepoblada, normalmente tienen un solo maestro y no creo que un maestro dé abasto para quizás 28 alumnos, como es en el caso ahora mismo de mi hija.
En mi clase tenemos 36 niños y solo hay una maestra y cuando los niños quieren responder preguntas o preguntar algo que necesitan, la maestra solo coge a los niños que están al frente y no a los niños que están atrás.
So I think that was actually one of the most powerful pieces of the workshops, was just thinking about, closing your eyes and thinking about what does a great school look like and how can a great school build great young people.
We always said, you get into an elevator, you have 2 minutes before the elevator goes down to the first floor, and you're standing right next to the mayor of New York City. What is your message to the next mayor?
As the A+ NYC workshops created a citywide vision for an effective education system, New Yorkers for Great Public Schools organized rallies to delegitimate the previous administration's key education policies.
The Department of Education and this administration seems to believe that the goal is to close schools under the guise of closing failing schools. The first thing, there are other things that can be done. Closing a school should be a last resort.
School closures are not progress. They in fact turn the tide back for many people. And what this recent report shows is that when a school is closed, it has a disproportionate impact on students with special needs.
When we say we're closing a school, let's face it, there is more than a little collateral damage. There's a lot of kids who don't get an opportunity because they're in limbo. They're in those grades that are quote unquote phasing out. Does anyone actually believe they get the attention they deserve? Do they get the attention that the new small school gets? No. We know they don't, but they're our children too.
This campaign consciously chose not to back a candidate, but to elevate issues, and I think there was a need for that. I think just backing a candidate does not serve the purpose of bringing in voices that are not normally heard from. It sort of ties your hand in a way because you're behind that candidate. Wherever that candidate goes, you're stuck in a way. This was much more about what we want anybody who wins to do.
As the campaign heated up, A+ NYC rented an old school bus and transformed it into a traveling school reform exhibit, using the workshop's recommendations as voting displays. A rally in Lower Manhattan launched the citywide bus tour, and the leading mayoral candidates showed up to endorse it.
A+ NYC is showing how it needs to be done. They're taking it on the road. They're reaching out to citizens, parents, students across the city of New York and getting their input.
This is exactly the kind of on-the-ground, real-life, real-time information that is going to help us make our schools better.
This bus is going to do a lot of good. It's going to reach a lot of people. And it's going to do what I've tried to do as public advocate, organize and energize parents to play the biggest role possible in a debate in this city.
So that was the other thing I really liked about the bus. In an election where community engagement and parent engagement was getting a lot of buzz, it was a very concrete way to show that you've got to go out into the communities and you've got to ask people what they think.
We're going to take this big blue bus around the city and we're going to take back all of the things that people said that they wanted to public schools. We're going to take it to them.
That was so powerful and so exciting to see this mobile exhibit in a bright blue bus going to neighborhoods that we don't normally see, bright blue buses, asking people to come in and vote.
Donde nosotros podíamos los papás entrar y conocer ese autobús, porque adentro de ese autobús iba a estar habiendo muchas como cosas que nosotros como papás queríamos ver que hubiera en las escuelas. Nos dieron unos tiquecitos que nosotros podíamos poner y escoger qué nosotros queríamos para mejorar nuestras escuelas.
And you voted by taking one of those tokens and putting it into the box that you like. And by the end, you literally could see what people liked because the boxes were overflowing.
Just being able to cast a vote in communities that oftentimes get shut out of democracy was so powerful.
So the ideas that came out of those 70 workshops, more than 1,000 people across the city.
The bus broke down, but we kept going. It was just such a great time to be able to build and connect with young people. It's incredible to be able to hit all these different neighborhoods, to be able to engage. So we were there from sunup to sundown in different neighborhoods.
The week-long bus tour visited 40 neighborhoods. After 1,800 people voted, 3 top recommendations emerged: reduce standardized testing, allocate more funding for schools, and provide more arts programs. A+ NYC summarized the recommendations in a roadmap for the next mayor and featured the roadmap at a citywide education action summit.
You go and you're going to tell your neighbor. You're going to tell everybody else in your school about this A+ New York, about the platform that we've developed for the next mayor. No matter who he is or she is, they're going to do what we know needs to be done in our school.
The summit was amazing. All of the things that came from the bus tour, we put it into what we called a roadmap for the next mayor. So we did a lot of workshops around like arts education and restorative justice.
We did a lot of work as like A+ Coalition to create and highlight policies that are working. We created this roadmap to tell the mayor, this is what you and the Department of Education have to do if you're committed to really ensuring all young people have access to a quality education.
A+ NYC and New Yorkers for Great Public Schools presented the roadmap to the mayoral candidates. In the campaign's final stage, Anthony Weidner suddenly entered the race and just as quickly withdrew, and Christine Quinn's early lead faded. Bill de Blasio's Tale of Two Cities, his opposition to stop and frisk, and his push for universal pre-K vaulted him into the campaign's front-runner.
You know, I talk about Tale of Two Cities. It shows up so strongly in education in so many ways. Our failure to invest in early childhood education and after school, something I'm trying to resolve by proposing a tax on the wealthiest New Yorkers so we really can make those core investments we need. But it shows up in suspensions too, and suspensions, when we turn to suspension, it's the cheap way out.
Closings of schools are not an educational policy. Instead of giving up on those schools, we need to turn those schools around. A chancellor's district would allow us to do that.
We need to stop treating schools as if they're corporate subsidiaries of Bloomberg Corporation and restore the learning environment in each and every one of our schools.
We laid everything out. We gave the policy recommendations. We provided implementation plans. We needed to do the work to say, no, Bloomberg, actually, your policies failed, and New York City, your people that you govern, The parents that you said don't know anything about education because they don't have an education themselves, right? They're the ones that took the streets and said, we're going to vote for something different.
De Blasio was elected by a landslide. His education platform incorporated the agendas of A+ NYC and New Yorkers for Great Public Schools. De Blasio's victory inaugurated a drive to increase the diversity, equity, and effectiveness of the city's services, particularly efforts to improve the schooling outcomes of all the students previous reforms had left behind.
We are here to transform this city, and it begins with transforming our understanding of how we change our society. It really begins with the people, it begins with the grassroots, it begins with parent activists. There's been a very good and healthy discussion. Don't our kids need to be in school longer? And the way we've addressed that is with creating these great new after-school opportunities for middle school kids. It's a time when kids need extra support. And those 3 extra hours after school, the tutoring, the homework help, the recreation, the arts and culture that inspires them, that hasn't been present in our school system enough in recent years. Every child who's in an after-school classroom who wouldn't have had the opportunity is one more child who's safe and secure. I want to thank you all. I said in the beginning, I'll say at the end, this is your house. This is your victory. You're here today because you are the people who made this happen. And let's use that to inspire us in the way to the next victory. Thank you.
In Mayor de Blasio's first 100 days, he appointed a progressive, charismatic, and highly respected educator as his school's chancellor. He secured funding for universal pre-K, launched an after-school program for middle schools, increased arts funding, and initiated the development of 100 community schools. The hard work of transforming the Tale of Two Cities school system had begun.
I liked feeling awake, I guess. I liked feeling conscious, like I knew what was going around me, like I wasn't being left in the dark, and knowing what was happening in my city. I think all students should be like that. All students should want to know what's going around in their city.
I think it's critically important in public education that the interests, the needs, the concerns of the users of the system are taken into account. You know, students are the ultimate consumers in this system, but parents are a pretty close second. And I think hearing from them, hearing what matters to them, and hearing it straight from their mouths as opposed to from groups like mine that, you know, sort of condense what they hear, it is a really valuable experience. One that's difficult to do. It takes a lot of resources, a lot of effort, but it's very worthwhile, and I think it's the key to bringing together greater support for public education.
I like to think that the work of all the advocate groups, community organizations, the work of young people, of parents, allowed for Bill de Blasio to be where he is right now. I like to think that he should be looking to us for solutions because we are the experts.